Hello, folks, and welcome back to another episode of Generation Red, the kettle corn of Husker fan podcast, where we try to be sweet, but at times we get salty. I am one of your three hosts, Ken.
And I am a host that is known as Scott.
I'm your other host, Levi.
That's right. As you can see, we are playing around with a few different lineups. There might be some other lineup changes coming along with the cast, so stay tuned for that. We appreciate you watching. We appreciate you tuning in tonight. It's going to be a fun one, as fun a podcast as we have done in a long time, because Nebraska didn't just exercise a demon. They bent that son of a gun over and smacked that ass raw on Saturday, and that was fun to watch. You can follow us at GenRedPod on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Also, make sure you're subscribed to our audio podcast at Generation Red on your favorite podcast app. Don't forget to like and subscribe and join the conversation by interacting with us in the live chat or leaving a comment below this video after it releases on demand on YouTube. Let's see here. What else? GenRed merch is available now on our website. Go to genredpod.com, click at the link at the very top in the gray bar on the top of the page, and you'll be able to go right there to that fun stuff, the fun merch like what Levi and I are wearing tonight. Interesting little tidbit of news. We have a new sponsor. Well, a new partner, if you will, not necessarily a sponsor, but Scott and I are excited to announce that our podcast has recently partnered with Underdog Sports, the easiest place to play fantasy sports, and they're offering a killer promo for our listeners. It's easy to get started. Just download their app, sign up, and deposit using the code GENRED, all one word, GENRED, and you could receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash, plus a free pick. So what are you waiting for? To get started today, click on the link in the show notes or the video description on this podcast, or just download the app for your Android or iOS device. If you deposit and use our code GENRED, you can receive up to a $1,000 bonus and a free pick. So there we are. Now that that's out of the way, let's get to the fun part, guys. This was great, watching Nebraska just take control of the game right from the get-go. Of course, even when we had a 12-point lead late in the fourth quarter, I'm pretty certain that I'm one out of three people on this stream whose butt cheeks puckered up a little bit, right? Didn't it get a little nerve-wracking for both of you, saying, oh, God, they scored too easy. Here it goes again, right?
Yep, those safeties getting blown up was like, oh, geez, that's no good. I mean, in the moment, I really wasn't aware of what was going on because I was dealing with some car trouble. So, of course, the one game that we get bowl eligible, I'm broken down on the side of the interstate and having to deal with tow truck logistics and filling out paperwork and blah, 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 all that fun stuff. So I only got to watch like the second and third quarter truly, and then got to passively listen to and watch the first quarter and fourth quarter. So I really only got to watch the game in full last night. And I'm actually, the one silver lining of that whole ordeal is that I didn't have to necessarily go through that, oh no, here we go again. All I could do was just tentatively look at the score and kind of keep tabs with things. And I just so happened to only watch the game when our defense was doing pretty well and our offense was clearly doing well. So from my perspective, my initial impression of the game was it was a great game with a few very minimal mistakes that we paid for, but I never really felt like the game was in jeopardy. That was the beautiful part about it.
Right. Levi, how about you? Your overall thoughts on watching the game on Saturday? I mean, we were watching it together, so we were having a lot of fun.
Honestly, I mean, yeah, when they first scored, I was a little worried. I was like, oh, here it goes again. But then we were so dominant on offense. We ran the ball down their throat. We looked so, from a team that looked like it regressed so much, we looked like we progressed a lot. And just it's been 2 weeks since Holgorsen's been here now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that was my main takeaway. It was just how dominant we were.
So would you say that from that game, if you were to take that game and extrapolate it across all of the other games, or I guess in hindsight, look at the other games and then take this game. Would you say that this is probably the best version of our offense that we've seen, even from the beginning?
Yes.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we had fairly good looking offense in the first 3 games, but those were, quite frankly, well, Colorado, I think, has turned out to be a little bit better team than all of us expected them to be. But it looked pretty good against UTEP and UNI. But once we got into the meat and once we got against people that know how to coach defense, Satterfield was easy to figure out.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was listening and reading a bunch of stuff that Dana Holgorsen said this week in the press conference, and he kind of got into the minutia of what happened and how he changed things. He said he had just decided to leave receivers in one spot. Okay, you're this guy, and you're this guy in every play. When before, what Satterfield and company were doing was, you know, Jacory would be the Z1 play, and then he'd be the X, or he'd be the W or the Y, or whatever the blazes the lettering system was for their. So these guys are having to learn all 5 positions on the field that would catch passes, as opposed to learning one. So Holgie was just like, I'm finding what you do best, and I'm putting you there, and that's all you're going to do. And you saw it. You saw Jamal Banks catch balls that were thrown right to him because he knew the route he was running for sure. There was no, you know, we talked about, Scott, where it looked like the routes that they were running was a little lazy. I wondered if it wasn't lazy as much as it was, holy crap, I'm not exactly sure if I'm running the right route.
Yeah, hesitant.
You know, could that be some of it too?
That would make a lot of sense.
That really would.
Because the overall contrast, like the jump from USC to this game was huge. And then I could even see it. I said it. And I think a lot of Husker fans have noticed the same thing, is that even though we lost last week, it looked like we at least had a general feel of what we were doing on our offense. There was some emerging identity that you could kind of detect as the game was going on. And this week it seemed like, I hate to like jump the gun here, but it seems like from what Holgorsen believed he could do in the few weeks within the few weeks of him showing up, I believe last week or this last game, we saw it. We saw, okay, this is kind of what I want to do. Here it is. And that just means that our players between this week and next week could potentially make an even bigger jump. I'm not trying to like jump the gun here. I'm really trying to be as rational as I can about this. But at the very least, if what we saw on Saturday against Wisconsin is the offensive identity we're going to see going forward for the rest of the season, which is one game, and then postseason bowl game, yay! I feel incredibly comfortable, which is something I haven't felt like since I was in high school, really. There wasn't a comfortable feeling with Mike Riley. There wasn't ever a comfortable feeling with Scott Frost, as it was just too up and down. You always knew that Martinez was going to fumble the ball or throw a pick in the most unclutch way. And then just last year and then the majority of the season, it has just always felt like we weren't ever comfortable. We had no identity. And this game, truly, like watching it last night again, and was able to like rewind and see how a play progressed. And there were just some things that I was just watching where I'm like, my goodness, these guys are confident. These guys are comfortable. These guys believe in what they're about to do. And then you could see some swagger, man. Like you could see the guys, like you could see their mojo building, and we could actually see the stars that were next to their name start to come to fruition. And dude, it was such a beautiful thing. Absolutely beautiful.
It was, and I don't want to take away from kind of your offensive stuff that you want to talk about necessarily. I don't know if you have any specifics you wanted to mention, but to me, it looked like poetry in motion. It looked like you said, they looked like they knew exactly where they were going. And here's the cool part. I think part of the paralysis by analysis that the wide receivers were experiencing, because they were trying to figure out how to run 1,200 different routes in any given play that was called. But Dylan knew where everybody was going to be, because it was simplified for him too. He had 2 reads, left, right, boom, check down. And it worked to perfection. So, of course, that means guys like Phil Parker, who's been coaching with Kurt Ferentz since before Dylan was born. Dylan pointed that out at a press conference. He's been coaching defense for Ferentz since 1999. They're going to have a few tricks. There's no doubt about that. And Dana Holgorsen also said it's the same stuff they were running clear back in 2001 when he coached against them as an assistant coach in the Alamo Bowl, I think it was, when he was an assistant. So both coaches are very familiar with each other. All these coaches are. So it should be interesting what comes come this. So Scott, if you've got any specifics you wanted to break down about the offense, where there's some plays, there's some things that grabbed your attention. Coach BA has got a play for us to take a look at. In fact, it's the first touchdown. So whenever you're ready for me to play that, I can play that. And why don't you give us your thoughts on the offense?
Well, some things that I first noticed was, I mean, everybody's been talking about it, so I'm kind of beating a dead horse here, but the fact that they pulled Fedoni out of the game because of a mistake, and then we got to see Borkature and Lindenmeyer get some meaningful snaps and then do something with it was just, it's like I'll use the word again. Like if you just extrapolate that to what we've also seen across the board, I mean, you can just see some synchronization of his coaching philosophy play out just in that. And then you've got Emmett Johnson. He pops off the first play in the second half. Or no, what I'm getting mixed up here. Was it the first play? I can't remember which one it is now. Oh my gosh. I wrote this down last night, but I don't have that notebook with me. I'm thinking of a play where you've got, or maybe this is Coach BA's breakdown, so I'll just briefly go over it. But you've got motion going to the left side of the field, and then you've got Emmett Johnson doing a dump route, and just they played it so confidently, and he just drops it into Emmett Johnson's breadbasket, just right off to the side, just boom, dumps it to him, and then he almost goes for a touchdown. And then there were you've got Dante Dowdell, who had some moments, that he had opportunities to seize the moment and he didn't. And so Emmett Johnson just continually got more and more time. And that goes back to what I said about Holgorsen. He clearly is able to make on the fly decisions and understands, even in the short period of time, he's recognizing instantly. You can see stuff in practice. That's fine. But sometimes in game, you can see people's strengths and weaknesses and how they manifest themselves. And Holgorsen clearly understands that. He understood that Emmett Johnson is a dog and he can do some things. Maybe it doesn't show up in practice necessarily. Maybe he is one of those guys that just, when the lights are on and he's playing in front of a crowd and he's got that game mindset on, there's a different gear to him. There's a lot of football players that have existed in history that have been like that. And our offensive line, blocked. There wasn't a single sack. There wasn't a single tackle for loss. Every single play was positive. Like, when was the last time that's happened in Nebraska statistically?
Yeah, no negative plays at all on offense. Yeah,
not one. And it showed. It absolutely showed. There wasn't a moment where I was watching our offense and, when we didn't score a touchdown, or, I mean, how many times did we punt? Once, twice?
I feel like it was twice.
Yeah.
2 or 3 at most.
And those drives weren't duds. They weren't 3 and outs. They were, at least somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Like I said, whatever. Memory is kind of what it is. But the drives that we did have, if they stalled out, it was because of a reason. It was because a player wasn't making a play like Matt Rule has stressed about. And so our offense, dude, I can't stress it enough. Wow. Like, I don't know any other way to describe it other than wow. Like what we saw against Wisconsin was nothing that I would have expected. They exceeded my expectations. And when is the last time, once again, as Husker fans, that we've been able to look at an offensive performance and be like, wow, they exceeded our expectations? The only time I can think of in the last 5-6 years was 2021 Northwestern. That absolute just beat down we gave them, 56-7 or something like that. That was the last time where I was like, holy crap. But you know, that year was what it was. So dude, I'm just that whole offensive game was just, it was a thing of beauty. It was like Mozart. It was like a beautiful symphony of complementary schemes and play calls and putting guys in the right spots and our guys responding well and then building off of that momentum. And there was no losing mentality that I could sense from the offense. It was just beautiful. Do you guys have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah. Number one, just a couple of quick stats for you about the offense is concerned. There was only 9 third downs that Nebraska had to try to convert, and they converted 4 out of 9 of them. So they were right about their season average on third down. But the fact that they only had 9 tells me they were extremely efficient on first and second down, especially first down. Did you see the graphic when you rewatched the game that at one point Dylan was 17 of 18 passing on first down for a total of 178 yards. So most of his passing was on first down, and he was almost perfect on first down. So that's kind of a Holgorsen staple. He likes to throw on first down to get the run established, kind of a little opposite of what we're used to around here, but it was fairly efficient stuff that he was running. And it was good for 10 yards every time he completed something on first down. So,
or it was a good little dump pass for 5-6 yards, and then it makes the run game easier. So weird.
Yes, for sure.
So weird that I'm like advocating for this.
Yeah, I know. Levi, do you have any specific thoughts about the offense? Some things you remember from Saturday that grabbed your attention?
Honestly, just those little passes, little underthrows, the little you got a guy running right down the middle with that. It was just, it's like Scott said, it was a symphony. It was something of like cinema unfolding before our eyes. It was just beautiful. That's really the only takeaway I have. It was just beautiful.
I think I remember one screen pass, and it was extremely successful. There was one where he looked out to the right and he came back to his left, and there's Barney. He dumps it off to him, and it was like weaving down the field for 15, 20 yards. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. So I'll just go ahead. This is Coach BA's offensive breakdown. We appreciate Coach BA. He's such a good friend. He had some family issues over the weekend that he had to deal with, so he wasn't able to really get to it like he usually does, but he put down a really good breakdown of the first touchdown. So make sure you're following him at the BA Coaches Show on YouTube, as well as at 8 a.m. on Monday mornings on the Gary Sharp Show. I believe that's what it's called now that Hanley's not on anymore. Best wishes to Nick. Hopefully he lands somewhere. I think he's landed at Husker Max. He's doing a show there now on YouTube. So that's awesome. But yeah, make sure you're following BA Coach's Show. He's got great stuff. And this is how he breaks down Harburg's touchdown on the first drive.
Offensively, I had a lot to pick from, but I chose this play pretty much for the play design. I had a lot to showcase the Dana difference, we'll call it, but I chose this play because I really like the play design. I like how we utilize motion because, look, Bonner he started like way somewhere out here and condensed it down to give it an easier block. You'll see why. Okay, I love this play design. So first of all, we got the front. They're going to gang left. They're going to go gang left just to get all this watched. We're just trying to cause a whole bunch of havoc in here. Gang to the left. Everyone's cutting off. Make sure no one can get out. Why this cutting down the split was pretty cool. One, gets us hands right here on the most dangerous defender. On this kind of hanger player right here. Most dangerous defender. Cutting him off. But, dude, can I tell you, this is what I really like about this play. Fake it to Dowdell. Right? Kind of like a zone read action, right? The part that I love about this play that's insane to me. is fake it, and then he becomes the kick out blocker, dude. He becomes the kick player. That's something that is really cool to me. I really love this play design right there. He becomes the kick out blocker, and then, hey, Harburg coming at you full speed. That's just going to be tough. I love this goal line play. I'll be real. I might be stealing this goal line play. I like it so much. Just condense it down. Condense it down. Now he's the guy cutting off, and then the running back's doing the kick out, and then just gives Harburg a lane, and that's all he needs is a little lane. I really love that play. The Dana difference made a huge thing, but you guys already know all this. Big play here. First touchdown of the game. I loved it. Everything I wanted to see.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was pretty. I love that. I didn't notice in watching it live or even watching the game back. So I did watch it back Sunday night, I think it was. I didn't notice that Dowdell was the one who became the blocker that right because I was just watching Harburg. Did he get it off or did he keep it? And then I was like, oh God, yeah, Dowdell what did become the blocker. It kind of reminded me of some of those quarterback power plays back in the day when Osborne was kind of the originator of some of these zone read type schemes. Back when Scott Frost was quarterback and Amon Green was a running back, there were a couple of plays against the Washington Huskies in '97 that they did the similar thing where he faked it to Amon. Amon goes up, follows the fullback up into the hole, and he blocks the other linebacker, and it springs Frost free on 2 touchdown runs. So it's kind of similar, but not really. But yeah, I love seeing that big set on the goal line where everybody's in tight and mano a mano. All Harburg basically has to do is beat one dude, and as long as it's blocked well, he's going to have a full head of steam to do it. So thanks, Coach.
Love it. I also love it when, yes, thanks, Coach. I also love it when we get Ty Robinson in as the fullback.
At the end of the game.
And then, and then he breaks the dude's arm.
Yeah. I almost felt bad for the guy, but then I didn't. I was like, well, And not only was Robinson in there, but Judy was in there too. Elijah Judy was in there. At first, I thought it was Janaran Bonner because he's also number 16. But then I watched it back again and slowed. I'm like, holy crap, that's Elijah Judy. So two dudes weighing over 280 coming at you in the hole as a linebacker is just not a place you want to be.
I have a feeling we'll see more of that. And who knows? We'll go over Iowa preview at the end. Who knows? Maybe they actually imagine Ty Robinson getting a handoff as a fullback. If we're at the half-yard line in Iowa City. I think you got to go for that.
You got to hand him the ball. Let that big dog eat.
If it's first or even second and goal, you've got a few tries. So why not give it to the big fella?
Right.
Yeah. Anyway. Watch him blow people up like the refrigerator Perry did back in the day for the Chicago Bears.
The refrigerator.
William the Refrigerator Perry. Yeah, that dude was a monster. Well, that pretty much wraps up the offense. I've just got a few notes on the defense, nothing too extensive. I'll be curious to hear what you guys have to say. First of all, they allowed 7 explosive plays of 20 yards or more, 6 passes and 1 run. Conversely, Nebraska had only 5 plays in the game that were over 20 yards, which, as good as that offense was, kind of surprises me, but they were really good at that 10 to 15 yard range. They had a bunch of plays in that range too. So, and it seemed like the defense was a little bit disconnected between the defensive backs and the front 6 or 7. And I think that's been pretty typical since John Butler has been here. The disconnect between what coverages he's running versus what Tony White was used to running a defense in coverages with Evan Cooper. It's a little different. There's been a adjustment period and the safeties kind of getting lost and Isaac Gifford kind of being left flat-footed on the long touchdown. That's twice now, I believe he's done that. Hung the cornerback out to dry, once against Ohio State, now once here against now I'm not so worried about it against Iowa because they can't throw the ball for crap. They're 18th in the Big Ten in passing, so I'm not quite as concerned, but I don't know. That would probably be the one game that they're linebacker for quarterback would actually have success with our luck. But yeah, we gave up a total of 407 yards, 292 yards passing to Braden Locke. That's only 1 yard less than our 5-star freshman quarterback threw for. He was 20 of 30 for 3 touchdowns and an interception. They rushed for only 115, and Dupree was their leading rusher, 8 at 63 yards. And they scored 25 points, 7 in the first, 3 in the second, 7 in the third, and 8 in the fourth quarter. So the defense did enough to win the game for sure. They got some key turnovers when they mattered, most notably at the end of the first half, right? When for some dang reason, Fickle didn't have them kneel down on the ball when they got the ball back with 17 seconds. Robinson forces a fumble. Bayer picks it up. And, one quick pass to the sidelines later, John Holt kicks another field goal. That 10-point swing right there at the end of the second half where we scored on the last drive, we get that fumble, we kick. I think that took all the air out of Wisconsin's sails. And then Nebraska comes out in the second half and does what they don't normally do. They score 20 more points. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Where was that earlier this year, like, say, against Colorado? I don't know. Maybe it's because Satterfield was drawing up new plays at halftime that he wanted to try. But so, yeah, that's really all that stood out to me on the defense was kind of the total stats and the fact that it just seems like between the front 7 and the back 4 or 5, they look a little disjointed. Looks like there's a disconnect, some communication errors maybe that are happening, and they're paying for it in some of these big plays. Here's hoping they can shore some of that up. It's a little simpler to defend Iowa, I think, though. Even Holgorsen said, same schemes. They've been doing it for years. So not going to be seeing anything really new. Just a lot of power, a lot of counter coming right at you with the big back and Caleb Johnson. So Nebraska football, the voice of college football. Justin, what's up, buddy? It's good to see you. Thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate it. You guys got any thoughts on the defense here before we move on to the game MVP?
Well, I'd say that it was definitely, all explosive plays aside, it definitely seemed like the defense was playing with some tenacity, some aggression, and pretty disciplined overall. Aside from those, as you pointed out, 7 explosive plays, it really was kind of a black and white type of defense where it's either we were completely shutting them down or we were getting completely blown up. Luckily, it didn't result. Yeah, it didn't result in us losing the game, thankfully. But I think it was one of the first games that I could say that our offense gave our defense a lot of breaks. Our defense didn't have to win the game for us this time around. They were given a lot of kind of freebies that it's like, it's a bummer that you allow, your safeties were basically twiddling their thumbs and there was nobody there to get that explosive 40-something yard touchdown pass from happening. But you know what? We already had, we were already up on them 17, 20 points or something like that at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, Mulligan, try again.
Yeah.
That hasn't been the case for Nebraska this season, last season, and many, many seasons before. So I'm sure that's got to feel good for the guys. That going into Iowa, we're probably going to get blown up quite a few times by Caleb. But when you've had a game like this and you just know, you know what? We don't have to bear the weight of the entire game on our shoulders. I think that'll help. But this game specifically, you know what? As hard as I've been on the guy on the defense this season, and deservedly so, they've definitely deserved our ire throughout the season. I'll give them a break this time, but it's
Levi,
only because our offense.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Levi. What, anybody stick out to you? I know for me, I thought Robinson was kind of a beast. He didn't have the huge stats, but he was constantly in the backfield harassing the poor guy, which I love.
It really was. I mean, that honestly, I share a lot of the same views as Scott. I think was a very black and white defense we saw. But it did feel like they weren't carrying the whole game on their back, which was nice.
Mm-hmm.
It was nice to see that. And they were getting off the field when they needed to. It was good. It was very nice.
And like the graphic I think I shared with you earlier this week, Scott, interesting statistical crazy stat of the season so far is that in Memorial Stadium, Nebraska's Blackshirts have not given up a single rushing touchdown. Not one. 0. And they went 5-2 at home, which is one of the things Trev, back when he was still here and Rule really wanted to get right, was we got to get good at home. We got to make sure we're defending the home turf. Hopefully next year we go 7-0 at home. That would be really cool. And I appreciated what Rule said at the end of the game. I really did. One of the first thing he said, this is the last time we're going to be celebrating 6 wins. The implication being, no, that's well below the expectation. We'll celebrate it now because it's been a long time coming. But from now on, 6 wins is going to be the minimum. And we're going to celebrate when we get beyond that. And we really are contending and people are having to deal with us because the end means something again. And I appreciated that. Let's see, was there any other weird stat that popped up? Nope, I think that's it. I think that's all I've got as far as the Wisconsin preview. We appreciate y'all sticking around and watching. It's good to see you all very, very much. Let's see here. I sent that stat to every football person I know. BA strutting for the Blackshirts. Check this out. They didn't give a touchdown up all year at home. You know what gives me hope, though, we're moving on to Iowa, so we might as well talk about this. Caleb Johnson is good. Yes, I agree. Caleb Johnson is an extremely good football player, and they know how to block for him. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But they struggled to beat Maryland on Saturday. They really did. They struggled for a long time to get them put away. And Nebraska went into Ohio State and took on probably the 2 best backs in the Big Ten and shut them down. Shut down Judkins. They shut down Travion Henderson. They exposed that offensive line for not being as good as it could be when it came to the running game. They did the same thing to Rutgers when we played them and Kyle, the fun guy, Manun guy. He got nothing after the first quarter. This defense has proven to shut down the run. So I think they're going to have a good plan going in. So Iowa preview, just some quick stat comparisons. I don't have any slides for this because, my parents got in from Arizona late last night to visit us for Thanksgiving. They have not been up here since Liam was born. So that's been a while. It's going to be really fun to have them around for Thanksgiving and for the game and whatnot. So I didn't do a whole lot of the production work I usually do, but I do have some stats here. Iowa's total offense, they're 12th in the Big Ten at 347 yards per game, whereas Nebraska is 11th at 361 yards per game. So total offense is pretty comparable. I would say Nebraska's numbers should have been quite a bit higher had the Dana difference been making a difference about 11 weeks ago instead of 2. Iowa is first in the Big Ten in rushing. That's 214 yards per game, and Nebraska's 12th at 129. Their passing offense is 18th in the Big Ten at a whopping 133 yards per game, which is about what we were doing last year. Nebraska is 9th at 231 yards per game. Their scoring is 5th in the Big Ten at 29.4. Nebraska is 11th at 25.1. Total defense. Iowa is 6th in the Big Ten at 312. Nebraska 10th at 329. Rushing defense for them is 7th in the Big Ten at 115. Nebraska's 6th at 111. That's the key matchup, is how does their rushing defense stand up to what Holgorsen's going to want to do? They're pretty good against the pass, being 8th in the Big Ten at 197. And Nebraska's 11th at 218 yards per game. Scoring, they're 5th at 18. And Nebraska's 7th at 20. So both teams are pretty good at preventing people from scoring. Iowa's got the advantage being at home. And For me, the offensive player to watch is Caleb Johnson. Obviously, he's got 223 carries, 1,492 yards at 6.7 yards per carry and 21 touchdowns. Scott, if you had a player on the defense for Iowa that concerns you that Nebraska needs to scheme up to keep him from affecting our offense too much, who do you think that person should be?
Well, I tried to get all fancy. I tried to go down the rabbit hole of the nuances of Iowa's defense, because they always sport out a good, solid defense, top 10 defenses pretty regularly. But this is a pretty cut and dry pick for me. The stat leader, Jay Higgins, senior Jay Higgins, their linebacker. He's at the top of the stat line for a reason. I mean, he's a semifinalist for the Buckus, Lombardi, and Bednarik awards. And he is the only player from a major conference with 100 plus tackles and 4 interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
He is clearly their impact player on defense, and right behind him, you've got Nick Jackson. He's got the record right now in the NCAA history for playing 71 total career collegiate games, and he's also a linebacker. So I'm going to go with Jay Higgins, but I mean, just their linebacker core in general, that second level that we're going to have to go up against is going to be very, very difficult. And just they're Iowa. They're going to have a good defense. They're going to put a lot of pressure on our offense to put up points. Just they're Iowa. They're going to give us a hard time. They're going to make sure that every yard is earned in the running game, and we better make dang sure with them leading. What is it? I think they're leading the nation in interceptions or turnovers. They're leading the nation in turnovers.
Yeah, we got to take care of the football.
We got to take care of the football. So their defense is going to be what it is going to be. And I actually feel pretty confident that we have got an offensive coordinator that can exploit it for all the reasons that you explained earlier. If there are people who are listening now that weren't listening to it earlier, those of you who are listening to the podcast, I'm going to beat a dead horse here. But Dana Holgorsen knows the Iowa defensive schemes. He knows how they work, what they do. They have bread and butter plays they have bread and butter schemes that they rely upon, and they just dare you to try. That's all they do. That's all Iowa does. That's their defensive scheme is we know what we're going to do. You know what we're going to do, but we dare you to do it. And so what are we going to do? We'll see.
We double dog dare you. Who was that? Somebody in the chat. I know I'd seen on Twitter earlier this week that somebody for the Iowa defense has opted out for the rest of the season to prepare for the NFL, and I believe it was a defensive back. So I don't know if that means much of anything, but hey, I guess that's the age of college football nowadays, is that players that maybe aren't seeing what they thought the team was going to be is just like, screw it. It's all about me. I'm going to take my NIL money, go home and opt out for the NFL. I don't know. But I'm not sure. I hadn't gotten a chance to watch BA's defensive breakdown yet today. Because I was in the middle of camera fiasco. That's why Levi's not in the studio with me tonight, folks, because I couldn't make a second camera in here work without looking like we were in the Matrix or something. So, see here, Jamari Harris is the one who opted out. So I don't know.
Thanks, Justin. You always clutch, buddy.
That might help us. Wasn't he a safety? I think he's a safety, which should help us in the run game. But then again, Higgins is still there. So whoever's lined up to block him is going to have their work cut out for him. So let's take a look at the defensive play here that Coach threw up for us.
For the defensive breakdown, I really just want to show you guys the play that took us bowling. I love it. So here's the play we're going to set up. Obviously, big passing situation just because there's very little time left. We don't care about giving them the first down. We're just trying to slow this game down the best we can and not get beat over the top, hence the defensive play call here. Wisconsin's running pretty tight on this side, so we're obviously way condensed down. We got Gifford here playing center field, which, hey, maybe that's an interesting decision. But up front, we do have something I kind of like since we're going to attack these edges. We're going to be attacking the edges here. Got both our defensive tackles out wide and then linebackers coming off the edge. Got Vince. We got Jamari Butler right there. Sorry, forgot the number change. So you can look at the eyes. Deshaun Singleton does a great job with his eyes here, playing this deep part. We got the flats right here. Sierra Wright running the flats. We got Hartzog going to keep pushing. He reroutes them. Great job. And then he's just going to keep going the flats. But since, again, we're not that worried about it, we're just not going to get beat deep. Wisconsin does a decent job kind of finding the hook. The hole in the hook zones here, right? Bullock's dropping hole in the hook zones, but here's why I give Deshaun Singleton a ton of credit. A ton of credit for that. Got that eyes, and he, as soon as that ball got ricocheted, that's all him. All him. Send us frickin' bowling. That's the play I wanted to show you guys because that's the play that ended the drought. It ended all the craziness. So here you go. Just watch his eyes. That's what I was watching is his eyes. It's beautiful. I love it. Going bowling.
you can't tell that Coach BA was happy. You know what? I heard him on the Go Big Redcast. They included him in their post-game kind of celebration of this win over Wisconsin. They brought him in, and they were just saying, Redcast Rob was like, Coach, I am so happy that you're not out wandering the streets of Lincoln trying to console yourself until 2 a.m. like you did last time. I'm just so happy for you. And I know it's, I completely neglected game MVP for the Wisconsin game. That is my bad, folks. Please forgive me. There it is. Obviously, for us, it's no doubt. It's Emmett Johnson with 16 carries, 113 yards, 6 receptions, 85 yards. A case can definitely be made for Dylan Raiola. Had his best game of the season. Case could also be made for Ja'Cory Barney, who kicked everything off with that huge kickoff return to start the game. I mean, that set the tone early, so it's real easy to make a case for all three. But the fact that Emmett really emerged as RB1, to me, made his contribution the most valuable on the field that day. So let's see here. I'm not totally drinking any Roulade. I'm totally unbiased and completely objective here in Nebraska. 48-13. Okay, well, he's kicked it off. Moonbot's already given his out there as far as what he thinks is going to happen. 34-13, and that Barney gets a 45-yard touchdown pass. 48-13 is what BA's got you. The rest of you watching, throw us a bone. See what you think. What do you think is going to be the score? I'll throw mine out there here real quick. Or actually a key to victory. I keep forgetting to go by my own notes, guys. I apologize for that. But a key to victory for me, one of the most important things I think this team needs to do is Caleb Johnson. Limit him. Just limit him to, because if they're over 100 yards, 100 plus yards, they're 7-0 in those games. So if we can limit him to under his average, get him down in that 95 to maybe even 102, 103 yards, then I like Nebraska's chances. That's my key is what do we do with Caleb Johnson? How about you guys? We'll start with you, Levi. Surprise.
Right. Just keep doing what they're doing. I mean, they don't have the cloud of dread over them anymore. So they can just go out there and really just have fun and play football. Right. And so, yeah, just go out there, play their hearts out, make the plays when it matters.
Ready, Scott?
Well, it's one of those things where if everything goes right, this could be an absolute massacre, in my opinion. I think we've got a good defense, a good one. I think that our special teams have kind of figured some things out over the past few stretches of games.
Good point.
There's less things for me to point out and be critical of. There's still a lot left to be desired, but they're not killing us in any meaningful way. And then our offense seems to be clicking. But I think the true key to victory is going to be minimizing mistakes. Iowa is their bread and butter is capitalizing off of other teams' mistakes. And a part of that has to go with what I was talking about earlier, their defense. They just dare you to try them, and they will seize up any opportunity that they can to jam the knife into the wound. And yeah, just looking at the history of Nebraska, I've got some not so fun facts here. So the Hawkeyes have won 20 of their last 23 games in the month of November, dating back to 2019. Iowa is 2-1 in trophy games this season and are 28-10 in the last 38 rivalry trophy games. So let's see, what else did I write down here? Yep, you've got Caleb Johnson. He's the second best running back in the country right now, next to Ashton Genty, which Ashton Genty is just bananas. Iowa has scored 40 points in 3 straight home games for the first time since 2011. Iowa is 32-0 when scoring 21 plus points since 2020. Iowa is 5-0 in Big Ten games when Johnson rushes for 100 plus yards. Yeah, and you can just look at all the things that Iowa has been good at this year. And when I'm looking at those things that made Iowa good, I think Nebraska can complement those things. I think Nebraska can shut some of those things down. Like you were saying, Dad, earlier, you were talking about our game against Ohio State. Even though the Quinshawn Judkins and Travion Henderson duo hasn't been as headline grabbing as it was preseason, they haven't necessarily churned out the productivity that the nation was kind of expecting them to. It's still an incredibly talented room that we shut absolutely down. And I think that it's just about time for Nebraska to just absolutely insult and disrespect Iowa. Iowa, fun fact about this game, it's a night game in Kinnick. That's hard. And they're wearing all black uniforms. So they're going to be blacked out. They're going to be murdered out. And so we got to murder them. That's what we got to do.
All righty. How about your score prediction? Go ahead with that.
All right. So last week, I remember I don't want to say shocked the world by any means. But I picked us to win against Wisconsin. The score was 20-17 was my prediction, and they way exceeded my expectations. So I'm gonna be conservative again, just because try me, Nebraska, try me. I think Nebraska wins. I really do. The matchup, once again, logically, like when I separate all of the emotion of the Iowa rivalry and I get rid of the night time at Kinnick and all of the stat lines that Iowa fans like to overly inflate their egos with. And I just look at it from an objective standpoint. Nebraska, our offense, what we saw against Wisconsin matched up against what their defense is right now. I think Nebraska wins that battle more often than not. And then you compare their offense to what our defense has been on average this season. If we can figure out a way to shut down Caleb Johnson, that's it. Game over. They can't do much of anything else. And I have a feeling they can. We have evidence that we can. And then on special teams, as long as we just continue to do what we're doing and just not suck, make our field goals when the opportunities are there, and we don't screw something up. We don't call a fair catch inside of the 3, inside of the 5-yard line. And when I just look at this, we have the potential to just absolutely shut Kinnick up. And so my score prediction is 31-17, Nebraska. It's a close game. I think it's a close game up until it's not. I think Nebraska it's going to be one of those games, in my opinion. I think it's going to be one of those games where Nebraska kind of jumps out 14-0, something crazy like that. And we're like, And then Iowa kind of pushes back. They get a few explosive plays, and they bring the score close again, and then it's close for another couple quarters, and then the fourth quarter we pull away. And that's it. Nebraska beats Iowa. We take the trophy home. It's just going to be a fun game.
Alrighty. How about you, Levi? What do you think?
I think 31-17 sounds fair. I'm going to be honest. I think it'll be a close game. But yeah, I really don't have much else.
Alrighty.
You know what? I'm going to retract something just to really dig the knife into the wound. The stat line of Iowa not losing games where they've scored more than 21 points. All right, I'm going to allow Iowa to score 23 points.
Ooh.
We'll say that. But then that just means that Nebraska scores another 10. So it's 41 23. 41-23 Nebraska. I revamp it just to really
really jab it in there.
Yep.
Oh my goodness, that's funny. So Moonbot's playing around. He says, rumor has it that Dana wants 500 yards on offense. He always wants 500 yards on offense, Moonbot. That's not a rumor. It's a fact. I started it, but please spread it. And then Gen Red Wifey said, I was going to type 31-17. I'm not sure which Gen Red Wifey that might be. I'm guessing it's your Gen Red Wifey.
Probably not.
Because, yeah, I'm not sure.
He's dealing with a baby.
Not sure. So BA coaches Moonbot. That actually made me laugh out loud. Moonbot being a star. So I'm kind of with you guys. I have, let's see, what did I write down? 31-20 Nebraska. I've got a little bit closer than you do, Scott, a little bit closer than you do, Levi. Again, this is one of those games where we don't win by one score. We win by more than one score, but it's a little tighter being on the road. Maybe there's a turnover that we don't expect toward the end, but the defense does its job like it did in that turnover against Wisconsin that could have made things look a little bit scarier than they were. So yes, I guess I'm wrong. It wouldn't be the first time, sweetheart. It wouldn't be the first time. Yeah, he heard the rumor. Dana wants 500 yards on offense.
Man, that rumor is making waves.
It didn't take long. No, did not take long. Anyway, 31-17. That's where I'm at, and that's it. That winds up the show. Levi, thanks for joining us tonight. This has been fun. Thanks to everybody who's been watching. If they were to follow you out there on the old social media universe, Levi, where would they be able to do that?
Nowhere.
Nowhere? Okay.
Nowhere.
Okay. And then Scott, of course, you're just still lurking on the X, right?
Yep. Just lurking.
Just a lurking. You can follow the show, of course, at Gen Red Pod on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You can also listen to the audio podcast by subscribing to Generation Red on your favorite app. Like and subscribe. You know the drill. Interact in the live chat here over the next couple minutes, or once this video becomes on demand, make sure you leave us a like and a comment. It helps push the show out to more eyeballs. And that's never a bad thing. Don't forget to go to genredpod.com and get your Gen Red Pod merch. Just click on the link at the top of the page. Anyway, for Levi, for Scott, and myself, all three of us tonight, we are Generation Red, and we are here to chronicle Nebraska's inevitable return to college football greatness, which started just a mere 72 hours ago. And until next time, there is no place like Nebraska.
Iowa's corn sucks. That's all I got today.
So bad.
So bad. It's just terrible.
So terrible.
It's terrible.
It's like worse than Kansas corn. Ask
Right?
BA, he'll tell you.
It's almost as worse as Satterfield, but not. I don't think it's that bad.
They're like neck and neck there.
That's pretty close. Yeah, I'm not sure I'd want to saddle Iowa's corn with something that horrible. But at least he's a good tight ends coach. Those guys made some plays. So anyway, until next week, y'all, God bless. Go Big Red and good night.
Go Big Red.